Good afternoon, everyone. I am Anshul Karwa, the moderator of this webinar. We are delighted to welcome you all to this webinar, which is being organized by the CP Committee of ICA. Please block your calendar for the CP Committee webinars. It is my pleasure to be the moderator for the 89th webinar on professional opportunities for CAs in Luxembourg and UAE. It is from today 4 to 6 p.m. and in a short while we will start this webinar. First, I would like to apprise you about the CP Committee. The chartered accountancy profession is growing rapidly and has now taken a leading role in business and economy. Today, our profession has acquired a vital position in business and economy. ICA aims at developing knowledge edge so that members stand out to expectations of the society. And to achieve this objective, the CP committee has been continuously striving for perfection, integrity, and knowledge, which make the word chartered accountant closely associated with the excellence in service. In this direction, the CP committee has always been proactive in the emerging needs of its members, enabling them to acquire current knowledge and skills to face challenges effectively by organizing CP programs and providing opportunities. So today the program for this evening is as follows. We have two sessions of 1 hour each, and the topics are the first one is opportunities for CAs in Luxembourg, and the second is opportunities for CAs in UAE. So our eminent speakers will talk about these emerging areas of your interest. Also, I would like to thank you all for joining us today from different parts of India and across the globe. Also, the participants are requested to post their questions in the chat box, which will be taken up at the end of each session. So now I take the opportunity to introduce our first speaker, CA Rashmi Arora, who will be speaking on opportunities for CAs in Luxembourg. So CA Rashmi Arora is a CA, CS and a finance leader with over a decade of international experience spanning Big Four consulting and global corporate finance. She leads strategic finance initiatives at a very renowned MNC focusing on supply chain controllership and operational scalability across global markets. She began her career with the Big Four firm specializing in transfer pricing, later moved to Luxembourg, expanding her cross-border expertise. Also, she serves as a treasurer on the board of ICI Luxembourg chapter, where she plays an active role in building a strong professional network for Indian chartered accountants in Europe. We are grateful to have you, ma'am, today. Now, I request you to kindly take over this session. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Anshul. That's very kind. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, bonjour, moyen, and thank you for joining today's session. I'm going to be sharing my screen. Just 1 second. Anshul, could you help me know if everything is visible and I'm audible well?
Yes, you're audible and you're visible.
Okay, perfect. Great. So we'll start with a very small-sized introduction. Today's session is focused on opportunities for CAs in Luxembourg. It's actually a country which is small in size, but it plays a very outsized role globally. So, particularly in funds, banking, tax, and cross-border finance. So today we will explore how Indian CAs can position themselves to be a part of this ecosystem. And over the next hour, I will walk you through why Luxembourg matters, where the real opportunities lie, what skills and profiles are in demand, and practical pathways to enter and grow here. The overall session is designed to be practical, realistic, and forward-looking. Whether you're experienced CA or you're a student or someone who's considering an international move, we'll cover it all. Moving on. So before we get into the facts and the frameworks, I want to ground us visually, okay? We hear Luxembourg and we think, okay, it's a small country, it's a niche market, but that perception changes very quickly once you see how Luxembourg operates on a global stage. So before we dive into the big topics and the big names and the overall concepts, let's look at this short video, which gives a quick sense of what Luxembourg is, and how it thinks, why it matters, and especially in finance, governance, and cross-border business.
38 essence à fond. Mais en même temps, un gros film, ça te fait.
Okay, so that's Luxembourg for you. Does it look like a small country so far now? So, okay, so small on the map, but absolutely not small in impact. It is officially the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg. It's the only one in the world. And what translates into for professionals is stability, strong institutions, and predictable regulations. Some people call it a modern village. It's far from that when you come and visit it. Here's a fun contrast, okay? Luxembourg is smaller than many Indian cities, but yet it's one of the largest financial centers globally, especially for investment funds. But what is the most peculiar thing? It's the languages. There's French, German, Luxembourgish. Yes, Luxembourgish is a real language. But all international companies have English as their business language. Almost half the population is foreign. You have to believe me when I say that there are more than 175 nationalities here. This is not only a locals market, but it's built for international professionals. There are a lot of expats here. And yes, and there is growing Indian professional community here, but particularly in finance, consulting, and tech. So this is very interesting. Okay. You see, this is Luxembourg's biggest secret weapon. It is small, but it doesn't think as if it's small. So it's on paper. Um, Luxembourg has about 650K people, which is like tiny, until you zoom out. So if we zoom out onto this bigger circle, the greater region, as you can see, within 1 hour of commute, because it's surrounded by Germany, France, and Belgium, within 1 hour of commute, Luxembourg can tap into a talent pool of around 11 million people across all of these neighboring countries. We also have Netherlands. It's also closer to Switzerland. But if you see these closest countries around, it's very interesting how many people travel to Luxembourg every day. So in short, I can say that the country initially wakes up small in the morning, but it goes to work huge. There's a lot of traffic around for a small country like ours. Um, and that's why companies do not have to worry about the talent shortage here, because you add to 135K students from top European universities. There's Brussels University around, there's Leiden University around, universities from France, HEC, etc. They're all here, and students, they do come to Luxembourg for the broader opportunities that we have. And here's the part that gets interesting, right? Almost half the population is expats from 170 plus nationalities, as I mentioned before. So you're not an outsider who's trying to fit in. You're one of the many international talents making the system work. That's exactly why Luxembourg attracts global banks, Big Four firms, fund managers, and regulators, they get the global talent, EU access and stability all in one place. Okay, now let's zoom in really close and understand the peculiarities of Luxembourg. The country is powerful not because of its size, but because of where it sits. It's very central. So from this tiny spot, the companies get access to 500 million customers across the European Union. And this access it's not theoretical. It comes with free movement of goods and capital, services, people. Particularly for businesses, it means that you set up once in Luxembourg and you operate across the 27 countries. For professionals, especially us CAs, this means our work is automatically cross-border. Yeah, you might sit in Luxembourg, but your clients, your funds, transactions, and audits span all of Europe. And that is why Luxembourg attracts global banks, fund managers, big four firms, not because it's central on the map, but because it's central to how Europe does business. And that's exactly where CS come in. Okay. So take a look at this. These are all the companies that are present in Luxembourg. Because if you do a very quick Google search on Luxembourg, the first thing that pops up is that it's the financial capital of Western Europe. But is it only finance? Short answer, not even close. Okay. Finance is big. It's really big. But if you see closely, the country is built on diversification by design. You have industry and automotive big names like ArcelorMittal, Goodyear. There's Amazon. Amazon actually has its European headquarters here. There's also PayPal, Microsoft, RTL, and of course, finance and professional services, all of them, all of the global banks we have, big fours and all the top tier firms. You add to that the EU institutions like the European Investment Bank, European Commission, which brings long-term stability and policy-driven work. One fun fact. Luxembourg consistently ranks among the top global fund domiciles, second only to the US, structured and reported from here. Sorry, I was here, right? So it's structured here, which means a huge amount of money of the global market is flowing from Luxembourg. So over the years, Luxembourg has also doubled down on a lot of funds, on a lot of, sorry, there's something wrong. Give me 1 second. Okay. I was saying that Luxembourg has also doubled down on fintech, ESG reporting, and alternative assets, private equity, private debt, infrastructure funds, and these areas are growing fast. And guess what? So this means that the opportunities for CAs is increasing. It's not only limited to just one sector. It's not just consulting or just banking and financial institutions. It's also spread across industries and services and institutions. Moving on. But when definitely, Google is right that it is a financial center, this is what they really mean. It's not just one industry working in isolation. It's actually an ecosystem where everything connects. So funds are set up, banks operate them, insurers cover the risk, stock exchange lists them, and post-trade services keep everything moving. So around that, you have lawyers structuring, researchers analyzing, regulators closely watching, and at the heart of this, quietly holding the system together are accountants, consultants, and auditors, because in Luxembourg, nothing scales, nothing crosses borders, and nothing gets approved without strong financial reporting and control. So once you see this ecosystem, it becomes very clear why CAs are not optional here. They are very essential to the ecosystem of this. Before we move on to some bigger topics and how Luxembourg and India are connected together, let's look at this short clip.
Ever wondered why Luxembourg ranks as one of Europe's leading financial centres? It's our international expertise. Selling funds, managing investments, businesses, and family wealth across many countries and continents can be complex. It takes a particular skill to understand the different legal, fiscal, and financial implications, and requires professionals that can think and act beyond their national borders. This is precisely the skill Luxembourg has to offer. Banks, asset managers, insurance companies, and fintechs can benefit from an extensive ecosystem of service providers to support their international business development. The Financial Centre provides a complete range of services and solutions, whether for startups or the world's largest companies. Thanks to a stable and well-regulated environment, a unique toolbox of investment vehicles, and the right expertise, Luxembourg helps demanding investors achieve their international ambitions. We are perfectly multilingual, and English is the main business language in financial services. People and companies from all over the world feel at home here. As a recognized EU hub and home of the global fund industry, Luxembourg connects markets in Europe and the world. It gives investors access to global and European equity, as well as sovereign and corporate bonds via its funds, supporting growth in Europe by channeling private equity capital, and helping governments and companies across the world raise finance by listing bonds on Luxembourg's stock exchange. That's why the majority of the world's top asset managers are based here. And it's why international banks, insurers, and even fintechs serve EU customers out of Luxembourg. So if you want to connect with investors in markets across Europe and beyond, why look anywhere else?
That wasn't pitch, that's a reality. So all that I've said before about Luxembourg, this was a small gist and a teaser of what the country entails. Super interesting if we dive more into it. Before we talk about what are the investment tools, etc., in Luxembourg, let's talk about some of the relations between India and Luxembourg. We'll connect it to India now. So the relationship between India and Luxembourg, it's not very new. In fact, it's 70 years old, stable, trusted, and quietly growing. If you think the India-Luxembourg relationship is just a back office partnership, let me tell you, just this month, in January 2026, Dr. S. Jaishankar made a high-profile visit here. It was a part of massive surge in momentum. He pointed out something very powerful. While Luxembourg might be small geographically, it's a financial superpower that acts as a vital bridge for India into the heart of the EU. The message was very clear. We are moving from being distant partners to strategic best friends in finance. And there's a very beautiful human element to this. During his visit, Dr. Jaishankar touched on the shared values that have existed since 1948. There is a very beautiful park here in Luxembourg, in the municipal park, and there is Mahatma Gandhi's statue right there, and that is where he shared about his Green Diamond partnership with Luxembourg, that India provides the scale for sustainable projects, excuse me, and Luxembourg provides the world-class green capital. It's a perfect match of Indian ambition and Luxembourgish precision. It was a very interesting visit with Dr. Jaishankar here. So if you look closely on the companies that are currently Luxembourg companies that are currently in India, connection becomes very real. Up to now, we have looked at the relationship at the macro level, the capital flows, services, policies, but this connection also shows up in very practical ways. A number of Luxembourg-based companies have been operating in India for years. You might recognize Bernard Mashad, Husky, Boston Energy, ArcelorMittal. That's a clear name here. In many cases, the work happens in India, while the group structure, financing, or regional oversight sits in Luxembourg. So money, information, and reporting don't move in one direction. They move back and forth continuously. If you knew about these companies, please type a yes in the chat box if you're able to interact. If you're not, we can talk about this later. And basically, the flow goes both ways. Just as Luxembourg companies operate in India, there are a number of Indian companies that have chosen Luxembourg as their European base. You'll recognize names like TCS, Infosys, Wipro, Tech Mahindra, alongside manufacturing and logistics, media, and investment services. For many of them, Luxembourg acts as a gateway into Europe. It's closer to clients, regulators, and capital markets. What's interesting is that these setups are not just sales offices. They involve European contracts, local compliance, group reporting, and cross-border governance. So again, the connection is not just symbolic, it's actually operational. Moving on, let's look into how opportunities are tapped. Okay. So far we have looked at where Luxembourg sits, who is already connected. Now the natural question is, where is Luxembourg actually focusing its energy today? So if you see here, at the core, like I said, if you Google it, the very first thing that pops up is the financial capital. So at the core is the financial services. That remains the backbone. But what's changed over the last few years is the layers that have been built around it. There's a very deliberate push into fintech and ICT, not just apps, but infrastructure, data, cybersecurity, and regulation-friendly technology. And at the same time, Luxembourg has made it unusually easy for startups and entrepreneurs to set up, test ideas, scale across Europe. And finally, trade and investment, not in the traditional export sense, but in terms of capital, platforms, and cross-border structures. So what ties all of this together is that these sectors don't operate in silos, they overlap. Finance with tech, startups with regulation, investment with governance, and that overlap is exactly where professional skills, especially accounting, reporting tax, all of the transfer pricing, compliance, that becomes critical. So with that in mind, let's go a little level deeper into what actually happens inside the Luxembourg's financial sector. And when we say financial services in Luxembourg, it really comes down to four main activities. First is the investment funds. This is where Luxembourg is globally best known. Funds are set up here, administered here, reported from here, even if the asset sits all over the world. The second is banking, not retail banking, but international and private banking, supporting cross-border businesses and investment structures. Third is insurance, especially reinsurance. This is long-term, balance sheet heavy business, which requires strong controls and reporting. And fourth is capital market operations. So bonds, listings, structured products, many of these are organized in and reported out of Luxembourg. So across all four, the common thread is not transactions. It's basically governance, reporting, and regulatory discipline. And that's why professional roles have here tend to be more structured and responsibility heavy. So with this foundation in mind, let's look at the newer activities that are building on top of this one. So a lot of facts, a lot of numbers around this, and let me just put some scale around what we've just discussed. On the investment fund side, Luxembourg is number one fund center in Europe and number two globally after US. About 62% of the cross-border investment fund assets worldwide are routed through Luxembourg. And that is not concentration by chance, it's by design. Funds that are set up here are distributed to more than 70 countries, which is why reporting and governance standards are so critical. Banking here is also very international. There are over 130 international banks. As you can see, 136 international banks from around 29 countries operating in relatively, it's a small market. What's interesting here is the solvency ratio, which is comfortably high. which reflects a very conservative, stability first regulatory approach. On the parallel side, we have insurance. Luxembourg specializes in cross-border life insurance and reinsurance, again, long-term structures, not short-term products. And finally, we have capital markets. Luxembourg Stock Exchange lists tens of thousands of securities across dozens of currencies for issuers from over 100 countries. So the common theme across all the 4 areas, asset management, banking, insurance, capital market, is scale. And that is combined with discipline. And that combination is exactly why roles here that you would find in the market plays a very strong emphasis on accuracy, judgment, and accountability. On top of the core activities that we just discussed, Luxembourg has also been very intentional about a specialized few areas. One of them is sustainable finance. And this is not branding, it's regulation, reporting standards, and real accountability around ESGs. Okay, because of course, sustainable finance is much talked about. It's bigger in scope now. Another is fintech, not consumer apps, but infrastructure like payments, fund tech, reg tech, data, and security, built to work inside a highly regulated environment. You'll also see renminbi businesses, where Luxembourg acts as a European gateway for China-related financial activity, and Islamic finance, where Luxembourg provides Sharia-compliant structures within a European legal framework. And what's common across all of these is that they sit at the intersection of finance, regulation, and structure, which means they don't reduce the need for professional judgment, they actually increase it. If we have to talk about renminbi and Islamic finance a little bit more on detail, let me unpack these newer areas because they often sound more complex than they actually are. On renminbi business, Luxembourg acts as a European gateway for China-related investment activity. It's a preferred location for listing China currency bonds and for funds investing into mainland China. That's why several Chinese banks use Luxembourg as their EU base, not for retail banking, but for cross-border finance. On Islamic finance, Luxembourg has quietly become a global player. It's the leading Islamic fund center in Europe and among the top globally by combining Sharia compliance structures with European regulations. And then finally, there's fintech. And our approach here is very, very practical. We have payments, fund technology, RegTech, and infrastructure that work with regulation and not around it. That's why you see major global payment and e-commerce players operating from here. We have PayPal, Amazon Pay, Rakuten, Payconic, it's very popular here. So all of these commerce players are operating from Luxembourg. And so finally, we have sustainable finance. Luxembourg hosts the world's first exchange, which is dedicated to green and sustainable securities. We'll learn about it a bit later again. And a significant share of global ESG funds are structured here. Across all these areas, the pattern is same. Complex products, strict regulation, strong need for reporting and oversight. That's where we come in, okay? Now, this is the wide spectrum of fintech activities. And while this slide looks very busy, which is actually the point, what you're seeing here is Luxembourg's fintech ecosystem mapped out. It's not one or two startups. It's payment, data, AI, RegTech, cybersecurity, fund tech, blockchain, all operating side by side. You can actually pick some very famous names here, but most of them are also startups, and Luxembourg actually encourages it. So notice something important. Most of these companies don't sit outside the financial system. They sit inside it. They build tools for banks, funds, insurers, regulators, and administrators, not around regulation, but actually within it. And that's why Luxembourg's fintech growth looks very different from what we see in many other markets. Here, technology doesn't replace finance. It's actually strengthening it. And for professionals, it actually matters because this, as system becomes more digital, the need for strong controls, reporting logic, data accuracy, and regulatory understanding actually has to increase. So fintech here doesn't reduce the role of accountants and advisor, it changes how we add value. With that ecosystem in mind, let's look at the structures and tools that Luxembourg uses to turn all of this activity into scalable business. So if we zoom in a little further, this is what fintech actually looks like in practice. A lot of activity starts with compliance and risk management. And in a highly regulated environment, technology is often built to make regulation work better, not bypass it. You'll also see blockchain and smart contracts, but mostly in very specific use cases, fund units, settlements, digital assets, and not speculation. Then there is security and authentication, identity, access control, and data integrity. All of them are non-negotiable when you're dealing with cross-border finance. On the investment side, automated investment services, they help scale the portfolio management and reporting, especially for fund and wealth platforms. And underneath all of this sits data, right? Analytics, monitoring, reconciliation across systems, payments, of course, are a part of the picture, but again, mostly at scale across borders. So what's also important here is the research backbone. As you can see on the right, there is close collaboration between industry and research institutions. So innovation stays aligned with the real world constraints. We have the University of Luxembourg. It's incredible. And, for a professional like us, it means that the roles don't disappear. They're actually evolving. And then one reason these ecosystems work is that startups here are not left on their own, because there is a very fairly tight support network. Places like the House of Startups, LHOFT for fintech, Newco for early stage founders, and Technopark for scaling. They're not just co-working spaces, they actually connect founders to regulators, banks, legal advisors, and investors early on. On the funding side, support comes from both private and public sources. And privately, there's access to local angels, family offices, and venture capital, and importantly, proximity to a large number of European VCs within a short flight. Publicly, Luxembourg plays a very active role. Funds like Luxembourg Future Fund and the Digital Tech Fund co-invest alongside private capital, especially in early and growth stages. There are also grants tied to research and innovation, which reduces early risk for founders. So for professionals, it matters a lot because young companies, they still need structures, sometimes even more so than the large ones. And that actually creates early stage roles in finance, governance, compliance, not just product and tech. Yeah. So exactly. Now we have learned about what is fintech and where are we getting the support and the grants from. But what is exactly inside the Luxembourg's investment toolbox? You can see a range of names here. There's UCIT, SIF, SICA, RIF, limited partnership, securitization vehicle, and family wealth management. Sounds very complex, but before we go into the names like UCITS or RIF, let me simplify this. Luxembourg didn't invent anything new. They didn't invent any new finance. It has actually organized it better. Now, these tools are basically containers, right? Like different types of companies or trust, each built for a specific investor and purpose. Think of it like India. In India, we don't use the same structure for everything. We use a listed company for public shareholders, a private limited company for promoters, LLP for partnerships, and trust for long-term or family assets. Luxembourg actually does the same, just for global investment. So we go one by one. UCITS, it's like a mutual fund for the general public. Very strict rules, high transparency, and accepted across Europe. SIF is actually a private fund for sophisticated investors, fewer investors, more flexibility, but still regulated. Then CCAR, it's close to private equity or venture capital, It has a high risk, high return, and it's meant for long-term capital. And then RIF is a faster version of private fund. It's flexible like SIF, but quicker to set up. Regulation happens through service providers. And similarly, like limited partnerships are exactly what they sound like, when investors want control, alignment, and profit sharing. Then there are some securitization vehicles when you want to turn cash flows, loans, receivables into investment products. And then finally, family wealth management structures. It's all about preservation, succession, and governance. It's not about trading. So these are all the different kinds of tools that we have. It's very interesting when you start learning about this, because there is a lot to explore. The funds and the instruments that Luxembourg uses is very, very interesting and very different from what we have learned so far in our theoretical courses. So moving on, we'll talk about Luxembourg Capital Markets Stock Exchange. But before we dive into it, let's watch a short clip.
What is Luxembourg's role within global capital markets? What is it about the country's financial services ecosystem that has global issuers and investors relying on it for their international capital markets activities? Luxembourg's legal framework is at the heart of this. It allows for a wide range of operations and transactions, taking into account local, European, and global market dynamics. This has led to the Grand Duchy emerging as a leading securitization hub, and Luxembourg law being increasingly used to govern international capital market financing. Home to Europe's leading stock exchange for international debt listings, as well as the world's first platform dedicated to sustainable securities, Luxembourg offers international firms, supranational organizations, and governments the ideal platform to finance their projects. Innovation is also at the core of our DNA, whether it be the issuance of DLT native securities all the way through to the tokenization of real-world assets. Luxembourg is embracing solutions that are shaping the capital markets of tomorrow. Our expertise has been built up over many decades, from setup to primary market activity all the way to post-trade. Luxembourg's capital markets ecosystem includes a broad choice of financing vehicles, as well as specialists to advise on the best structures and terms. This makes it the perfect springboard for global capital markets activities. Luxembourg, helping finance go global.
Actually, what you saw covered most of the multinational companies and all the big fours. You must have seen that in the videos, but it's just a snapshot. There's so much more to it. What opportunities do we have here? We're talking about India and Luxembourg both. So far, we have talked about ecosystems, structures, and tools. But look at this slide very closely. This is where it all translates into day-to-day work between India and Luxembourg. What we increasingly see is a two-way collaboration, not just one direction outsourcing. On one side, Luxembourg remains close to the clients, regulators, and decision-making. On the other side, India contributes scale, depth, and specialized expertise. And this shows up in many forms. There's international mobility, people moving temporarily or permanently between teams. There's co-sourcing and shared service models, especially in accounting, reporting, tax, audit support, and advisory. There's also a growing layer of digital and fintech-driven services, data, automation, blockchain, AI, cybersecurity, supporting financial institutions and funds. And at a more traditional level, we see strong demand around financial reporting. And IFRS, US gaps, Luxembourg gaps, particularly for funds and cross-border groups. International tax and transfer pricing is another natural bridge because these structures are by definition international. And finally, EU-facing work. Tenders, public institutions, infrastructure projects, where Indian capability increasingly supports European delivery. The key point is this. This isn't about replacing one location with another. It's practically about splitting work intelligently across border. And that's where the next section actually becomes very important. So if we make it a little practical, imagine a company, Indian or international, deciding to expand into Europe with Luxembourg as its base. The work just doesn't start with growth. It starts with setup, choosing the right structure. What structure do you want? What kind of funds do you want in it? You need to register the entity, getting the tax position accurate from day one. Very quickly, people related issues will follow. You have to hire, payroll, social security, mobility, visas. All of this needs to work smoothly across borders. Then comes tax, corporate tax, VAT, transfer pricing, sometimes even US or multi-jurisdictional tax exposure. Alongside that, there is a digital layer, systems, data, controls, increasingly automation, support finance and compliance. So once the business is up and running, the focus moves to back office stability. Then you have accounting, reporting, payroll, outsourced finance functions, and these are ongoing, not just one-time tasks. And as companies grow, they need support with acquisitions, valuations, restructuring, and throughout all of this, there is audit and assurance, regulatory compliance, and governance, especially in a European environment. So if you look at the areas that are listed here, what stands out is not complexity. It's basically continuity of these services, right? These are long-term services which are tied to the life of the business. And that is why this model works well across India and Luxembourg, and different parts of the work sits in different locations, but the responsibility remains shared. Okay. And so this leads us to the next transition of how do we tap into these opportunities. The opportunity is quite practical, right? First, it's about mapping what already exists. Clients who are present in India, in Luxembourg, or in both, and bringing alignment instead of duplication. Second, we go to market together, not as isolated firms, but as coordinated teams targeting the same clients. And then third, building the new service offerings around the skills that we already have, rather than inventing something new. And lastly, using our ICI global network as a real working platform, not just a directory, okay? It's very, very useful. The more you network, the more you'll get to know the strength of having an ICI global network. And finally, sharing resources smartly. So expertise has to flow where it's needed and when it's needed, right? So it's about collaboration that is structured and not informal. These are all the links that I've shared here because, you know, this whole ecosystem has to work in a coordination form across with all the government bodies, regulators, industry association, and innovation platforms. I'll be sharing this offline. So if you need any of it, just, you know, you could refer to this ones. And basically this shows a map of India where which, you know, significant point of contacts are sitting in India where you can contact them. There are honorary consulates, there are ambassadors of Luxembourg sitting in Delhi. Very, very useful if you want to contact for Luxembourg relations in terms of work from India. Okay, I wouldn't talk a lot about why you need to choose Luxembourg for your business, but we have Mr. Lokdeep Singh, who's the CEO of TalkWalker. Let's hear it in his own words.
Hi, my name is Lokdeep Singh. I am the CEO of a local, global, and very proudly Luxembourgish company called TalkWalker. Like many expats, I came here with my family, with 2 sons and a wife, 10 years ago, and decided to stay on. We are now the proud owners of the local Luxembourgish passport, and this is our home. So there are 2 aspects why I really, really love Luxembourg. At a personal level, I believe this is a place, the best place, in fact, to grow a young family. It's a place where kids can be kids. It offers a lot of safety, good infrastructure, high quality of life. Then on the professional side, It's a place that I believe offers a very competitive marketplace for businesses to grow in, access to single market, access to a diverse set of talents, and opportunity to do anything you want to do as an entrepreneur and as a businessman. Luxembourg is a place which for a business is, as a market, small enough that you can test ideas very, very quickly as a startup, for example. But then because of the access to the European market, the single market, you can also then scale it very, very quickly. And you have all the right infrastructure in place in terms of Lux Innovation and various other institutions to help you do exactly that. Luxembourg's charm, I think, is a combination of many, many things. In my opinion, it's a very unique and somewhat intoxicating mix of the old and the new, the modern and the traditional at the same time. And then to add to that is this beautiful, beautiful nature that we see around us, is the reason why and my family love living in Luxembourg. If I were to pick one thing, I would say it's the international aspect, the cosmopolitan aspect of Luxembourg that we really, really love.
That was Mr. Lokdeep Singh from Talkwalkers. I think I really like the way he says it's a blend of modern and traditional at the same time, which is actually very true. 1 minute you sit in the corporate offices, and the second minute you open your window and you see castles and fields. So it's actually very beautiful here. I wouldn't have to explain much. Excuse me. You heard it from Mr. Lokdeep Singh directly. There are multiple reasons to choose Luxembourg, and to top, I want to add that there is healthcare and social security. You have strong employment security. There is exposure to international workforce, multicultural events, which makes it really a beautiful place to live in. And finally, the meat of the topic, chartered accountancy in Luxembourg. So, if you're comparing the path of an Indian CA to the professional landscape in Luxembourg, you're actually looking at two very different philosophies of financial regulation. In India, ICI acts as a massive centralized umbrella. Once you clear those grueling final exams and you finish your 3 years of articleship, you're essentially a Swiss Army knife. You can handle bookkeeping, tax advisory, sign off on statutory audits. It's a high volume, high endurance journey where, exams are really strict, but we come out with flying colors. However, once you step into Luxembourg, that single CA title actually splits into two distinct parts, the OEC and the ERE. If you want to focus on accounting, tax consultancy, and financial advisory, you look towards Ordre des Experts Comptables, which is OEC. But if your goal is to sign off on the official audits of the massive investment funds or banks that Luxembourg is famous for, then you must become the Reviseur des Entreprises via the Institut des Reviseurs des Entreprises, which is IRE, IRE. Unlike the Indian system, IRE is strictly regulated by CSSF, which is Commission de Surveillance du Secteur Financier, which is similar to SECs or SEBI, meaning the oversight is much more aligned with government financial stability. Just one catch though, both of these are actually conducted in French language. So it's recommended that if you want to come here and take the exam, then you have to learn the language first. The transition for an Indian CA it's not automatic. In India, the exams are entirely written, and they test your ability to recall and apply vast amounts of code. But in Luxembourg, examination of professional competence, EAP, is a different beast. It's split 50-50 between written exam and high stakes oral examination. So this oral component is designed to test your professional presence and judgment, essentially proving that you can defend your opinions in front of panel of experts. Furthermore, while Indian CAs start their journeys, like, we are able to do it right after school, we can do it after graduation. Luxembourg requires a master's degree as a baseline. So we will have to Luxembourgize our knowledge and ensure that, we get in touch with the basics of the Luxembourg tools and financials, which is not very, very different, but, having a knowledge of what's actually we're going to work around is very, very important. And there are courses for it, so it's not very difficult. So all of this information between ERA and OEC is actually here, so you could refer to this. I'll move a little bit quickly on the company setup and taxation. The India-Luxembourg tax treaty is conservative. It's not very aggressive. On dividends, interest, royalties, Luxembourg sits at a clean, predictable 10%. No MFN games, no surprise reinterpretations. On capital gains, the rule is very simple. If a value is clearly linked to India, India taxes it. If not, India steps back. And that clarity is what matters, because investors don't fear tax, they fear uncertainty. So Luxembourg's strength here isn't lower tax, it's basically stable outcomes year after year. So that's why funds and holding structures and long-term capital, feel comfortable rooting through the country. And this is where it gets very interesting, right? Let me explain. First, MFN is not automatic. There is a clause in the tax treaties of most favorable nations, and it's not automatic here. India has now clearly said, unless the government explicitly notifies it, you cannot import lower tax rates from another treaty. And that position was confirmed by the Supreme Court in 2023. And second, India looks very closely at what the payment actually is. Technical service fees often get treated like royalties and not business income. And third, which is the most important part, the substance matters. Beneficial ownership, people, decision making, all of it. So if structure exists only on paper, Indian courts are willing to lift the veil. So treaties, they actually do not reward very clever drafting. They reward actually real presence, which actually brings me this beneficial ownership. This actually brings me to my next topic of BEPS and financial ownership. And this actually explains why Luxembourg works and why shortcuts they don't. So BEPS has actually changed the game. Today, it's not about where you incorporate, it's about who really earns the income. And Luxembourg has proactively addressed the OECD's BEPS initiatives by reinforcing the need for economic substance and strict beneficial ownership identification. Beneficial ownership is an anti-avoidance test. It's the core principle, that profits should be taxed where real and economic value is created, which means mere legal form is no longer sufficient to secure tax treaty benefits. There is no single definitions. So authorities have to look at the facts. Why was a Luxembourg company set up? Who takes decisions? Where do those decisions actually happen? And substance is not just theory, it's very, very practical. You need to have an office space, people, cost, board meetings, travel records. So if income flows to Luxembourg but control sits elsewhere, then treaty benefits, they don't survive. But let's say, what's the good news? The good news is when Luxembourg structures are real, they are actually respected. And that's why Luxembourg attracts long-term capital, and there is no treaty shopping here. And once the substance is established in principle, this is how it's proven in practice. Authorities don't look for intent, they look for evidence. Where are the board meetings held? Who actually decides? Are decisions documented or just rubber stamped? So real control has to mean resident directors. So directors have to be in Luxembourg, right? Real discussions, written rationale. It means employees in audited accounts, tax filings, and everything in the company's own name. Because the BEPS project, particularly through the multilateral instrument, the MLI, introduced anti-abuse measures like PPT, Principal Purpose Test, into double taxation avoidance agreements that Luxembourg has signed. So the PPT actually allows tax authorities to deny TTAA benefits if it's reasonable to conclude that obtaining the benefit was a principal purpose of transactional arrangement unless it aligns with the treaty's objectives and purpose. So to successfully navigate the PPT, Luxembourg entities must demonstrate robust economic substance. This involves having local decision-making power, qualified local staff, adequate equity at risk, and commercial rationale that goes beyond just tax benefits, right? So, and parallel to the substance rules, beneficial ownership serves as a gatekeeper to treaty reliefs and compliance with anti-money laundering directives. And there is also the RBE law that is for complying the EU AML directives. Since we are short on time, I'll move a little bit more quickly on what exactly the major Indian companies do. A structure that we have discussed before, it enables access. So Luxembourg, as we have discussed, it isn't new to India. The first listing here was IDBIs. That relationship goes back to decades. And today that trust shows up very clearly. Indian issuers have raised over 770 million euros here. There are 40 rupee dominated bonds. Many are visible on LGX. 27 Indian issuers, 28 equity instruments. And these are not just fringe names. Okay, these are banks, industrials, infrastructure, consumer brands, and companies that need global capital, but also credibility. Moving on. This is the core platform for financial, and this is why we should care about the Luxembourg Stock Exchange from an Indian perspective. So think of it as an ultimate VIP pass to Europe's big financial party. It's not just a dusty old trading floor, it's the gateway. So thanks to our handshake agreements with folks like SBI and India INX, we can actually dual list stuff. That means an Indian bond doesn't just sit domestically, it gets its picture taken for the global stage, massively boosting its visibility. And here's where it gets cool. Luxembourg is obsessed with green finance, right? The green exchange acts like a super funnel, pulling international cash and directing it straight into the India sustainability projects, like those major SBI green bonds. It's a literal green corridor for cash flow. And crucially, it happens within the rock solid EU rulebook. So, you know how investors actually, all of us, hate uncertainty. Luxembourg provides that reliable regulatory certainty that makes the big global institutional investors sleep well. So ultimately, it's just smart business. It's about leveraging the sophisticated ecosystem to grab a bigger, more diverse slice of that international funding pie that's specifically earmarked for growth markets like India. And basically, this is the Luxembourg Green Exchange. If you want to learn more about it, I can share some insights and some documents around it about the Green Exchange. But apart from that, if you're looking for studies in Luxembourg, there is an active student life here. There is University of Luxembourg, student associations. I can share some links across as well. And while I wrap up, we've covered a lot today. We started with structure, regulation, substance, treaties. We've moved to proof, listing, capital raised, real Indian names, and we ended with platform, like how Luxembourg actually connects capital to opportunity. But what stands out is this, like Luxembourg and India, they don't need to discover each other. There are plenty of opportunities for CAs, given that you are serious and you really want to put in the efforts and you want to explore a new world of European markets here. The company and the opportunities are not just limited, like I said, for finance, but they are also limited, they are also expanding to startups in techs, mobility, banking. There's so much to explore here. In fact, you would also get exposure to multiple languages, right? Not just English and the local Indian language, but you would also come up and, learn a little bit of French, Luxembourgish, which is a mixture of French and German, and German also. You would travel a lot. So there's a lot of exposure that comes along with it. But before we just wrap up, I have a short clip to end the presentation. All right, that's all. Thank you all for your time. And if you have any questions, this is the contact of our chairman for ICI of Luxembourg chapter. There is my LinkedIn address. If you have any questions, I can take it up right now, one or two, or you could just request them at this email address. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for the insightful session. It was really nice. I would also like to inform that we have currently around 789 participants attending the webinar. So now we will now take some questions from the participants. Uh, Dinesh Jain from Chennai is asking, do the IRE or OEC Luxembourg certifications provide Europe validity or restricted to use only within Luxembourg?
So ERE is specifically for Luxembourg. It's but if you're able to do Luxembourgish ERE, then it opens up opportunities in France and Germany also, because the concepts are more or less the same. But specifically, they would only provide acting opportunity in Luxembourg.
Okay. Arif Ahmed from Calcutta is asking, you mentioned that Luxembourg is sitting in the hotbed of intellectual resources from best universities. How do you expect Indian chartered accountants from Indian centric knowledge to make an entry?
It's actually a good question, because see, as Indian chartered accountants, we are more adaptable to learning new things, right? What is happening around with the big universities is that the students, they choose their niche and then they come and learn, just apply that specific area. As chartered accountants, the biggest opportunity that we have is we learn about all the diversified subjects all together. And then when you come here and apply and learn about the specific things, like I talked about the alternative investment funds, hedge funds, etc., there is already a baseline hedge that we have on top of those students, that are international students, that we have already learned. So the base is already there. And then you come here and learn on the job, on the diploma certification side. So I'm not saying that you wouldn't have to make any efforts on educating yourself and then learning those things, but you would have to put in an effort, do some certifications and diploma courses. It's all very accessible. There are evening courses here. There's lifetime Luxembourgish learning centers that you can access as soon as you come to Luxembourg. You don't have to attend the university specifically, and you could do those courses.
CA Vikram Ji is from Pune is asking, corporate credit banking opportunities in Luxembourg is available and what steps needs to be taken to move there to work in private debt domain?
Actually, not overall clear on the question. Could you please repeat?
He's asking, is there any corporate credit banking opportunities available there? And what steps he needs to take to move there? He has around having 3 to 5 years of work experience.
Okay. So we're not actually talking about hiring opportunities here. There are actually a lot of banks that are in Luxembourg, maybe hiring. I haven't checked if they are actively hiring here or not. But look at the opportunities there. There's HSBC here, there's Citibank here. So most of them are, and there's ING here. All of them have entered into not retail but private bank.
Okay. Uh, Jeet Sarkar from Gurgaon is asking scope for ACCA students.
Actually very high. Most of the big fours, they actually prefer not just CA students, but also ACC is also very preferred in audits and statutory audits.
Okay, so I think we are running out of time, so
Yes.
I think we
Thank
should
you all for your questions.
thank you, ma'am, for addressing the questions. That was very helpful. Now, I think we should move to the second session on opportunities for CAs in UAE. So we now move to second session. I take pleasure in introducing our second speaker, CA Balaram Vuduchi. CA Balaram Vuchidi, a chartered accountant from ICI with over 18 years of diverse experience across audit, tax, transfer pricing, IFRS, Middle East, India, and the US. He has held leadership roles with Big Four firms and industry with expertise across manufacturing, services, technology, healthcare, and real estate. He is also founding partner of a consulting firm in UAE and has earlier worked with Deloitte, PwC, KPMG, and is handling corporate tax and international advisory assignments. He is also actively involved in professional training and mentoring through ICA and other platforms. We are grateful to have you, sir, today. So, sir,
Thank you.
uh, I would like you to take over the session on the opportunities for UAE. Over to you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, Anshu. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, you're clear.
Let me just share the screen. Is this fine?
Yes, it's visible.
Yeah. So good evening to all of you, and thank you, Rashmi, for taking us through the Luxembourg and the opportunities there. I think it was quite useful. So, as Anshul mentioned, I'm based out in Dubai. I'm into practice. I have my own firm providing audit, accounting, tax, and consulting services. I'm also one of the executive committee member of the ICA Dubai chapter. So we'll just focus on these following four areas. I'll quickly introduce about the UAE and how UAE and various cities in UAE like Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Sharjah have been evolving, and then how the evolution is helping us as chartered accountants in UAE, and what are the kind of career paths that we have to come and settle here as an employee or in employment or maybe in practice side. So, and also we'll quickly touch base on the strategies that you can follow to settle here in UAE as a professional. So, UAE, I don't want to focus more on UAE. I'm sure most of you know that UAE being a closest country to the India, we already have a lot of businesses and relations at very advanced stages between both the countries, India and UAE. But earlier, UAE was not focusing more on the global trade or attracting global talent. But over last 20 to 25 years, mainly Dubai, has been focusing more on attracting the global talent and high net worth individuals from various countries, and also the technical people to come here and settle down. So in that process, we see a lot of opportunities for professionals to do business here in the form of practice or to get into employment. So of late, earlier the focus was more on oil and oil related industries, but later on Dubai being pioneering the industries like tourism, the retail, trading, real estate and construction, hospitality, healthcare, and education. And very recently, they've been focusing more on the technology side and fintech side. So these are the industries that are predominantly prevalent here. And Dubai being or UAE being a country without democracy, it is more on monarchy side. So the leadership here is determined to take the country, development process. So their focus is always on developing the country. So when a country needs to develop, of course, the businesses as well as the professions should flourish. So their focus has always been on making sure that the businesses can do well and the professionals can perform their services very well. It is considered as a regional headquarter for most of the corporates to come and settle down here as a regional corporate office or their main corporate offices. So that way, the infrastructure they created for businesses here is top notch. It is international standard, and the ease of doing particularly is very high in terms of the safety standards for families to live here and for businesses to operate is quite high as well. And setting up of the businesses takes very less time. It is in some of the free zones you can incorporate a company within 1 or 2 days once you're clear about the activity that you want to do and this shareholding structure that you want to have. So these are some of the advantages or areas that the leadership here has been focusing on. One more thing is that unlike many other countries, if a decision is taken, if they have taken the decision today, from tomorrow morning onwards, the decision has been implemented. So they work in that fast-paced manner. So anything that they want to bring or any changes that they want to incorporate, it is not a bigger task for them. And once the decision is taken, all the departments which are related to that particular change, they do work in alignment and make sure that the implementation is happening in a quick manner, in an efficient manner. So that being said, UAE as a geographic wise also, if you see, it is located in a strategic place wherein it connects with the many countries in Asia with other countries in other continents like Europe and Africa. That way, a lot of trading activities do happen from here, as well as logistics also do happen from here, because it is connecting the countries in Asia with other countries in other continents. So geographic advantage also is there, which the leadership here has actually identified much before, and then they've been creating the relevant infrastructure to be able to do those activities here. And the business environment or the government also creating the environment in such a way that businesses can operate without having any fear. Earlier, the ownership structure was different. Like you if you want to have a company in mainland, you are supposed to have 51% shareholding by a local UAE national, and you being an expat can only own 49% of the company. But about 6 to 7 years ago, they have removed that particular requirement, which means the companies in mainland also can be 100% owned by the expats. So earlier, when this 51% UAE nationals and 49% expat was there, you had some free zones which were offering this 100% ownership to the expats. The disadvantage with them was that you are expected to perform business or conduct the business only within that free zone or outside of UAE, but legally you cannot conduct your business in mainland or in other free zones. But now, because that requirement of 51% UAE national ownership is removed for mainland entities also, you are free to own full business or 100% business by the expat, and you can also conduct your business within mainland as well as in free zones. So there is no restriction or limitation in terms of the area that you can conduct your business. So it is free to do anywhere. So that has given a clear advantage for expats to come and settle down in mainland and conduct those businesses. And UAE leadership also has got a very futuristic vision. They have the UAE 2031. By 2031, they want to bring a lot of initiatives. As part of that, digitalization and focusing more on technology and advancement has been there. And we see a lot of new initiatives that have been taken up by the leadership in that front. So they want to focus more on sustainable models and futuristic cities and knowledge-based future also. So these are the various advantages that we have being in UAE or if you want to come into UAE. Just to give you the brief understanding of the geographic form as to what is relevance for businesses. The UAE on left hand side, if you see, the UAE in total geographic wise is divided into mainland, free zone, and offshore. Before I get into mainland, so the offshore is the offshore entity wherein your domicile of the company is not considered to be UAE, but yet you are registered here. So this is an advantage from any tax point of view and legal structure point of view if you want to. And then we have free zones, which are called as free trade zones in India. So we have more than 50 free trade zones within India, within UAE, which are divided, or they came up with these different free zones based on the activity that each free zone is conducting. Like, if you are into wholesale trade, there's a wholesale trade related free zone. If you're into textile business, there's a textile free zone. If you're into production and manufacturing, there's a production city. If you are someone who is doing import exports frequently, and there are free zones which are adjacent to the seaport and airports. So depending upon the activity and the business that you want to do, the different kind of free zones are there, and the benefit that you have in those free zones are the infrastructure, the ecosystem is completely built around that particular activity, so that you have buyers and sellers, and related infrastructure is there as an advantage to start your company or start your business activities without spending too much to work on infrastructure. So that ecosystem is there, which gives you the advantage of doing business quickly and easily. So the free zones which are adjacent to the seaport and airports are principally considered as being outside of UAE for more practical reasons. And the best thing about these free zones is that any business that you do is predominantly considered as being done outside UAE from the point of view of VAT, value-added tax, and from various other compliances. We'll look into the corporate tax angle in the following slides. Only limited transactions or activities will attract taxes if you are a business in free zone. And leaving this free zone, the rest of the UAE is considered as mainland, which is like any other place in any country. So the mainland is considered as if the part of main UAE country. So the business that you do is considered as being done here in UAE, and taxes are applicable in full, and compliances are also applicable in full. But the advantage with mainland is that whenever you have a business in mainland, it is considered as a proper business establishment, and the perception of the entities in mainland is much higher or better than the entities in free zone. There are certain free zones which are premium free zones, which have got the special recognition. There are certain free zones which are financial free zones, like DIFC in Dubai and ADGM in Abu Dhabi. These free zones, the activities of those companies are predominantly into financial and finance-related activities, also fintech. So the regulatory compliances in these free zones are much higher. So all the activities that are done in this have got reasonable to high amount of regulatory compliances. So if you are into funding and fund management activities, see these DFC and ADGM are best ones to consider for. And if you are planning for any foundations or trusts, again, this DFC and ADGM are preferred free zones to go for. These are more or less operating in parallel with Gift City that we have in India. But these free zones are much more evolved, and infrastructure is advanced in these free zones. And ease of doing business, of course, is much higher compared to the other free zones that we have. On right hand side, just for the clarity purpose, I put up the various legal forms that are there. In blue color, you see the sole proprietorships, civil company, partnership, foundation or trust, and representative offices, freelancer visas, and companies. So these are the category of companies or form of organizations which are not considered as different from the owners. The owner and these business forms are considered as one and same. from compliances point of view or tax point of view, the business is not considered as different from the owner. So accordingly, the rules will be applicable to these activities and businesses. In the boxes in red color, you see limited liability company, public shareholding company, private shareholding company, free zones, branch of foreign companies, and branch of UAE based companies. These are independent organizations and they are different from the owners. So depending upon the type of company that you are into, the regulatory compliances will vary, and accordingly you need to take care of them. So just to give you the glimpse of the compliances that we have for businesses in UAE, we have country by country reporting, which started much earlier, and we have economic substance regulations also. Now, from 2024 onwards, the economic substance regulations has been abolished. But before, for that year and before, it was applicable, and most of the businesses were expected to comply with this based on the kind of activity that they are into. And later, from 2018 onwards, the value-added tax and excise tax have been introduced. And value-added tax rate here is here the rates are 0% and 5%. For large amount of businesses, 5% is applicable. Only for limited amount of businesses, 0% is applicable. And one that such activity is export of goods and services. For all your exports, the value-added tax rate applicable is 0%. You also have some activities which fall under exempted category, but predominant businesses do fall under the standard rated activities of 5% VAT. And they've also introduced anti-money laundering law. Earlier, because there were no taxes, even now the tax rates are very less compared to many other predominant economies. The OECD and EU, European Union, as well as many other developed countries, were of the opinion that UAE should bring this money laundering law or anti-money laundering law. So because of which UAE brought in anti-money laundering law, which is applicable for some activities directly. Financial institutions and banks are directly falling under this anti-money laundering law compliances, and few other activities like the lawyers, the auditors, the real estate brokers, traders who are doing business in precious metals, real estate brokers, they also fall under this anti-money laundering law compliance directly. Of course, businesses in general also are expected to comply with this, not to get into this money laundering activities. And from 2023 June onwards, UAE also introduced corporate tax. The corporate tax rates are pretty low when compared to many other countries. If you see the rates that are here, you can see if you are a free zone entity on right side, you can see if you are a free zone entity and you are qualifying as a free zone person or qualifying free zone person, for all your qualifying income, the corporate tax rate is 0%. So here to get this qualifying free zone person status, you should be an entity which is incorporated or registered in free zone. And you should be an entity which is conducting certain specified activities. And then you're also complying with various other conditions. And one of the important conditions is to maintain substance, which means you are really conducting your business from that particular free zone and you can demonstrate. Only then you will be able to get this 0% status on your full income or profit. You are a qualifying tourism person, but you have certain income which is non-qualifying income. On that, 9% corporate tax is applicable. On the qualifying income portion, it is 0%. This is for free zone entities subject to meeting those conditions. On left hand side, you can see general, for all other businesses which are not falling in this qualifying free zone person status, for them, the tax rates on their profit, which is taxable income. So 0% up to the profits amount of 375,000 dirhams, which is 100,000 US dollars. It is 0%, and it is 9% on the profits or taxable income in excess of 375,000 dirhams. This 9% corporate tax is one of the lowest corporate taxes that are there across the globe, at least among the prominent economies. So that is the reason why, since the corporate taxes are low And most of the businesses would still want to come here and set up their businesses to be able to get the benefit of low tax rate, yet you have a taxed income, which is considered as some business which is conducting the businesses or activities legitimate manner. So just to see some of the specific areas, if you see the audit, previously the audit was not mandatory for many businesses. If you see the era before the VAT was introduced, the audit was mandatory for very few purposes, of very limited purposes. Like, if you are a business with a loan or facility from banks, and only if the banks are asking you to submit the audit report, that is when you are mandated to do so. Plus, if you are a free zone company and only for renewal of the licenses, but some of the free zones are asking for the audit report, only then you are expected to provide or go for the audit and then provide the audit report for that. And if you are a company which is part of a group, either locally or outside of UAE, and for your consolidation purpose of a group reporting purposes, if you are expected to do audit of your books, only then you are supposed to do, or you are required to do audit, go for audit. So those were the only limited instances where the audit was mandatory. But now if you see over a period, there is a lot of evolvement in regulatory compliances. Now I can say that almost about 60 to 70% of the businesses are expected to go for audit, and the audit is mandatory for them. Especially after introduction of the value-added tax, excise tax, and now corporate taxes, many companies do fall under this mandatory requirement of getting their books of accounts audited. According to the corporate tax law, all the businesses which are getting the benefit are planning to take the benefit of 0% tax being in a free zone. So they are expected to get their books of accounts audited on a mandatory basis and submit that audit report along with the corporate tax return. And if you're not a free zone entity or free zone entity which is claiming 0% tax for all of the businesses, if your turnover is more than 50 million AED dirhams, AED or UAE dirhams, for all those companies, the audit report is mandatory while submitting the corporate tax returns to upload the audit report. So these are the now because of the evolution or introduction of corporate taxes or regulatory compliances, the audit is becoming mandatory for more and more companies. And FTA now because of corporate taxes, the information and maintaining the books of accounts and the accuracy of the reports is high. Our expectation is high from the Federal Tax Authority. Federal Tax Authority works under Ministry of Finance, and this is the authority which implements or helps the Ministry of Finance in implementing and administering the taxes and other regulatory compliances. Because corporate tax is in place, for most of the businesses, even transfer pricing is also applicable. So this is one important service line which has opened the opportunities for many of the CAs to get into this practice, like transfer pricing and advising on cross-border transactions and structuring. So this is one important area which has opened many doors for practicing CAs to act as consultants for many entities in Dubai and UAE. So we look into more other opportunities also, but these are various opportunities that we got as consultants in UAE because of regulatory evolution in UAE. We being Indian Chartered Accountants, what are the advantages that we have in UAE market? So ICAI has been working extensively on expanding the presence of ICAI in various countries. You see good number of chapters that we have overseas, and because of which the recognition in the market or visibility in the market has been growing. ICAI also has been working extensively on getting onto MOUs with various other global accounting bodies and with different regulatory bodies in different countries, which has opened a good number of opportunities for Indian chartered accountants. So that is one of the key area because of which the opportunities for Indian CAs have been growing. And we being CAs, we have good amount of flexibility in terms of adopting the new developments or new requirements for professionals. Wherever you go, to whichever country you go and want to work there, we generally have that adaptability, which is one of the strengths that we have as Indian chartered accountants or as Indians in general. So IFRS now for most of us is not a new thing as such. It's only a change, a different word. Predominantly, we have our Ind AS, which are more or less in line with IFRS. In UAE, the UAE government or the government bodies here, they insist on following IFRS. And for Indian chartered accountants, IFRS is definitely not a very new thing. So we don't have any problem as such when you want to get into employment or practice in UAE. Of course, we are used to these complex accounting practices or standards, so there is no much issues in terms of adapting or getting into complex accounting standards or structures. So, as I mentioned, UAE also is bringing a lot of regulatory requirements as and when there is a requirement within UAE or outside external pressures. So, we being chartered accountants from India are in a better position to adapt and implement or help government to implement those new regulatory requirements. Now let us look into what kind of opportunities if one has to come here in UAE and start their career like we have in any other places. So we can get into the practice or we can get into industry as an employee. So I touched base on what kind of opportunities, what kind of business structures that we have in UAE, based on which the requirements or compliances will vary. If you want to get into the practice or audits rather, so you can get into the big fours or mid-tier firms as on employment basis. As I mentioned, so you have a lot variety of services for which the bigger firms require employees from various countries. Audit and assurance being the primary one, which has been there for many, at least off late, which has been catching up a lot of demand. In addition to this, corporate taxes also brought in more demand for the chartered accountants to get into the big four firms or bigger firms. And you can also get into a small firms or boutique firms wherein they specialize or focus more on one particular service line or limited amount of particular limited service lines, but wherein they are capable enough to provide services for to larger businesses with by having a specialization and special focus only on limited services. So these kind of practices and firms number is increasing in UAE. If you are someone who is having specialization in some service line and who is looking forward to expand the business or that particular service into UAE, I think this is the right time for you to get into it because though we have good number of audit firms, there is still a requirement for more audit firms to come or at least specialized firms to come and then provide their services. And one such recent development in UAE is that e-invoicing, electronic invoicing is new thing that is going to come in UAE. For larger entities with a business turnover of 50 million dirhams or more, they're expected to appoint one accredited service providers before 31st July 2026. And they have to go and issue the tax invoices from electronic systems or e-invoicing systems from 1st January 2027 onwards. So here we have about 400,000, like 4 lakhs to 4.5 lakhs businesses which are registered, out of which the expectation is that about 90 to 95,000 companies are falling into this phase one of companies with 50 million dirhams turnover or more. So imagine companies of so many numbers are required to implement this invoicing system. As of now, if you see the FTA's website, only 12 service providers are registered as accredited service providers. By the way, here in UAE, They are following the PayPal model. So the service provider is expected to be ASP and GSP with PayPal, and only 12 companies or 12 service providers are accredited as ASPs by FTA at the moment. So providing services to this number, like 90 to 95,000 companies within next 8 to 10 months, definitely is going to be a challenging task. Of course, FTA also is looking at it and then trying to onboard as many companies as possible. But if you are a company which is into this and if you are expanding a plan to expand, definitely it is the right time for you to get into it. We have seen a lot of companies from India, especially coming in and starting their practices or expanding their practices in UAE, be into audit, be into accounting and CFO services, be into value-added tax, corporate tax, transfer pricing, company formation, and structuring advices. Some of them are also getting into RERA services and related services. So there are various services that you can get into. You can get into a regular form of practices, or you can start your own boutique form into specialized services. And I'm sure the opportunities are plenty. Just to check if you want to get into practice, I would like to pause here and then see what are the requirements for someone to come here and then uh, get into audit practices. I would like to just tell you the ICAI certificate that we have is not straight away recognized as a professional certificate to conduct auditing services or provide auditing services in UAE. To provide audit services in UAE, one has to have the auditor certificate issued by Ministry of Economy in UAE. To get that Ministry of Economy certificate as an auditor, you have to have a UAE fellowship or fellowship issued by an authority called EAAA, Emirates Auditors and Accountants Authority. So that EAAA is going to issue you this fellowship certificate only if you have a professional degree like our ICI certificate. Plus, you also need to pass 3 exams which are conducted by them. So once you have this certificate and you have exams passing, those 3 exams passing, depending upon the number of learning hours that you have, that EAAA is going to issue you the fellowship certificate. Once you have that fellowship certificate, along with that, you need to have uh, an attested learning hour certificate issued by your university. Along with this, you are expected to have a graduation certificate from your respective country, or you can have a local graduation certificate also. So this fellowship plus graduation certificate and the learning hour certificate, which is attested, once you submit all this, plus you are expected to have the experience. There are a number of years that they have mentioned. Based on the kind of experience that you have outside and in UAE, because of these combinations, they have given different number of years as a mandatory requirement. Once you satisfy these requirements and by submitting the documentation around these requirements, the Ministry of Economy is going to review those and then give you the certificate. Earlier, even this was not allowed. Indian chartered accountants were not given the audit certificate in between, but now they opened it only when you comply with these requirements. Even in spite of having auditor certificate before, we were not allowed to open the companies or audit business or audit licenses directly. It was always in the name of UAE nationals or GCC nationals to open these auditing licenses or auditing companies, wherein they used to be 100% owners. But over a period, they opened this ownership and they opened it up to 75%, which can be owned by expat as long as you have the UAE Ministry of Economy issued auditor certificate. But now of late, they've also removed that minimum 25% UAE national or GCC national to be part of it. You as an expat can own 100% UAE audit license or audit company or business as long as you have this UAE Ministry of Economy issued auditor certificate. So that is one best thing that has happened for auditing practitioners to come and establish in UAE. So, in addition to this, for any other activity that you want to perform, like the corporate tax advisory services, or compliances, or value-added tax, or AML, or any other specific services that you want to do, you're expected to open a license. You can open the license either in free zone or in mainland, but you're expected to have the activity of your service and related services, and then you can go on and provide the services to the companies. In addition to this, if you are into practice, there is various other requirements which define you whether you can provide services to larger businesses and business groups or not. One such requirement is that your audit firm is expected to be listed or empaneled with banks. Banks have also got different categories of listing of the auditors. Category A, Category B, Category C. Some banks also have Category D. Depending upon the category, then you will be eligible to provide audit services to different sizes of organizations. So that is one important thing for most of the auditing firms to look into it. And some of the free zones, they also have the list of approved auditors to provide auditing services to the companies which are incorporated in those free zones. Some of the free zones have strict compliance requirements to be listed as an approved auditor to provide auditing services to their companies which are registered in those free zones. So few such free zones are like DMCC. DMCC is one of the prominent free zones which have the companies which are doing the commodity trading predominantly, like gold bullions or jewelry tradings or precious metal trading, other commodity trading. So DMCC, the requirements of becoming an approved auditor with them are high. Likewise, we have DIFC and ADGM. There also we have high compliance requirements, and also it is little costly affair to be listed with them as auditor or approved auditor to provide auditing services for the companies listed with them or registered with them. So these are the few key requirements to demonstrate or to have to be able to provide services to bigger organizations. Of course, you also have to have the capacity to be able to provide services to bigger organizations. But quicker way to get into the bigger organizations to be able to provide services is to have boutique firms which are focusing on specific service line items uh, rather than getting into audit. I think is higher. So that is one thing that you can look at. Now, if you have to get into industry as an employee, so there are various industries that have got a high amount of requirements or chartered accountants, where you have the volume of transactions high, like the retail trading or oil and gas related companies. So they have a good amount of requirement of chartered accountants. So in that also you have finance related requirements, finance and accounting related requirements, where the volume is high there. And of late, we see good amount of demand growing for internal audit. Relatively, I'm saying not in volume, but compared to the earlier demand, of late we see good amount of demand for internal auditors also. If you're someone into that, you can see and look forward good opportunities for internal auditors. And of course, finance, accounting, and then related services, the CFO or head of accounting or treasury related requirements are definitely growing. Since we see a lot of companies shifting their regional offices or corporate offices to UAE, mainly to Dubai, the demand for chartered accountants is increasing. A lot of businesses are coming and setting up their shops here or businesses here. Of late, we also see technology companies coming and setting up their businesses, and cryptocurrency and trading related companies and technology related, as I mentioned, fintech related companies. They are also coming here and setting up their businesses here. So for them, If you're someone who is into technology supporting services, that also is one area that you can focus to come here and set up your, no, get into employment or set up a business. If you see not only in private industry sectors, but also into government and semi-government, mainly we see a lot of requirement or demand is more for Federal Tax Authority and related authorities, wherein the advisory or the decision making requirement on tax and tax related matters is growing. There also we see good amount of requirement for chartered accountants and financial professionals growing. If you see government and semi-government industries, like the companies like or authorities like ADIA, Mubadala, for example, so they require professionals helping them in internal audit and setting up their processes and looking at the compliances or setting up the processes or procedures for compliances also is increasing. There are certain larger organizations like ADNOC, which is the oil and gas, DEVA, SEVA, and similar authorities, which is the utilities, and Emirates Group, which is into aviation, as we know, and various other larger organizations working under government as semi-governments. So there also the requirement is high in various services for the chartered accountants. So as I mentioned, performance auditing, operational auditing, IT systems auditing, and those kind of roles are also increasing for professionals like us. So of late, we see the demand increasing for forensic auditing. This is one area that where the skill set professionals with this experience is limited in number. Of course, the requirement also is not too huge in size, but at least as it is increasing, the requirement is increasing, but the required number of professionals in this services is not that much. So the demand also is good in this area. ESG assurance services, ESG reporting, ESG compliances, and setting up of the policies. These are some of the areas where we can also look forward to have good demand. UAE government and leadership is committed to bring this ESG activities into practice into government industries, as government as well as into private companies to bring in this as a mandate requirement. At the moment, for listed entities, we have the ESG governance or ESG reporting as a mandatory requirement. But over a period within the next 2 to 3 years, we see that this ESG reporting and compliance is going to come as a mandatory requirement for even private organizations also. Risk advisory, ICFR consulting is another area that you can focus more on. The technology risk and cybersecurity assurance also is another thing that is picking up the momentum as we see good number of companies coming in this area. So just to see on overall basis what kind of skill sets you are expected to have, IFRS and ISAs are one important ones to have, especially if you're someone who wants to get into practice. Even in the industry also, if you want to get into employment and employment focusing on finance and accounting related activities or services. UAE corporate tax and value added tax, the ICAI also is offering the corporate tax certification course and value added certification courses of UAE in India as well. So you can, I think it is good someone to go through, undergo that particular certification course and have that certification course. So that once you come in here, you know at least know what is what, and then you can start getting into it without waiting for long. Even if you want to get into employment, attending and answering questions in the interview also will be helpful if you have these certifications. Transfer pricing is one important area where, of course, not many can provide these services, but if you are into this, we see a good amount of opportunities for transfer pricing related services also, be it in industry, be it in the practice side. Technology, as you know, so now the evolving trends, data analytics and tools, and AI related things are also picking up a lot. If you have some experience in this domain, and if you want to come up with some innovative idea, I think UAE is and Dubai is the right place for you to experiment and get into this, because UAE and Dubai government, in fact, Dubai and Abu Dhabi both are focusing more on developing or building the ecosystem around this technology, and in particular AI. ERP systems, if you are into the implementation partners or related services, I think that also is one area where you can focus. And if you have good expertise in that, it will be helpful to get into those services. So, I mean, here cross cultural communication, UAE is like, you have people coming from many countries, more than 100 countries. People are here, so the cultural differences you see, but yet because we have significant number of Indians living here, you see good number of people speaking Hindi also. So you don't feel that no, you are living in a different country as such, but yet the kind of infrastructure that we have, the kind of lifestyle that we have, the ease of doing business that we have, this is at international standard. So you get this advantage, but yet you don't miss your place or being in India. So you will have the best sides of both the worlds. So that's one of the advantages for us as Indians to come here into UAE and get into business or employment. I think we touched based on that. Introduction of corporate tax has been one of the key area or important area for us as chartered accountants to come and get into practice or employment. The opportunities are high, and you have opportunities across various service lines and industries. So you can look into it. Of course, before coming here, it is advisable to do some kind of research online, what kind of services and what kind of industries you have to focus on. And of course, ICA, as I mentioned, has good understanding and relation with many bodies or accounting bodies or financial bodies. So getting into the various countries is becoming easier, and many countries related citizens or people are aware of our qualification, and then they welcome our services also. So this is what I wanted to share with you all. And if you have any more queries, you can reach out to us. Locally in UAE, we have a regional office from ICAI. Regional office generally helps members in resolving their issues. We also have examination center here in UAE for ICAI students, and we also have chapters in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Ras Al Khaimah, and Fujairah, which predominantly help the members to be able to meet their CPE requirements and in their issues that they have. In Dubai, we have more than 3,000 members who are active members of Dubai chapter. Likewise, we have other chapters which are quite active. We do conduct a lot of activities on CPE front and on the cultural front as well. So this is what I wanted to share. If you have any questions, I am open to answer your questions.
Thank you, sir, for the insightful session. Now we'll take up the questions. So Harish Jhangra from Delhi is asking, I am a chartered accountant with 3 years of experience. No Big Four experience. What steps can I take to get a job in UAE? And what should be my expectations regarding salary range offered?
Yeah, so I think I tried to cover this in my presentation also. So it is important to see what uh, kind of service line you want to get into or industry you want to get into, and what is the kind of expertise that you have, whether it is accounting side or tax side, within tax also, whether direct or indirect. Then accordingly, do you have to get any certification courses which will give you that edge or advantage when you attend any interviews. In addition to that, the salary ranges, it varies. It varies within industry also from company to company. The bigger groups may offer a higher amount of salaries. The smaller ones may offer less amount of salaries. It also depends upon how urgent that requirement is for that particular company. Depending upon which, they may also go ahead and pay high salary. So, to be honest, there is no particular range as such. It all depends upon the timing and the urgency, as well as the profile that you're getting into and the kind of company that you're getting into.
Okay, sir. The CA Divya Sabnani from Bhopal is asking, is full-time physical presence is necessary for practice in UAE?
See, practice is always person focused predominantly. The longer you stay here physically, the better it is for you to reach out to as many clients as possible. But there are some professionals who manage by having a proper team, and in which case you may balance by having less amount of presence here also. But I think it's always advisable to be here for a longer period.
Okay, sir. Aditya Mittal from Mumbai is asking, any opportunity in your firm?
Now, we do take our Indian Chartered Accountants as and when we require. So we recently also have taken for sure. So the requirements are there. Not only for us, many of our chartered accountants from India, they prefer to take Indian chartered accountants into their firms because it is easy for them to coordinate and they understand the wavelength.
Okay. Mohammad Jishan from Hyderabad is asking, before we obtain license, EAAA is asking for Emirates ID to enable to register on its portal. In order to register on EAAA, is it recommended to first set up LLC with accounting and consulting and later register on EAAA and go ahead with EAAA registration and exam?
Yeah, so they're asking for you to have a residence visa, only after which you'll be able to get the Emirates ID. So residence visa, you can get it by getting into employment or by having your own company and then becoming an investor. So either ways, you can get a residence visa, and once you have the residence visa, then you can apply for the EAAA membership and UAE fellowship.
Tej Pratap from New Delhi is asking, I am certified in UAE, VAT and CT, but not able to get opportunity in UAE applying from last 6 months from India.
See, I think one difference that we have to notice or observe from many other countries, at least countries like US and other places. In UAE, for employment, if any company wants to take someone, they generally prefer to have the interviews in person than virtual. There are some companies which may be comfortable with this kind of recruitment, but a large amount of companies they require or request or prefer the interviews to happen in person so that they're more comfortable in offering the opportunities generally. That's what I noticed. But at the same time, UAE certification issued by the institute is only an additional advantage that you are getting, but it is not a certificate to get, or it's an assurance for you to get an employment in UAE.
Okay, so last question from Vipin Agarwal from Delhi. Does Dubai has better opportunities in business more than services? Any other prospective Emirates than Dubai as of now?
See, now Abu Dhabi and Russell Kema are also developing, but in terms of the volume of requirements, Dubai is still leading. Dubai still have got good amount of opportunities. Of late, we see a lot of Indian chartered accountants are also coming here. It also depends upon the time that you come in during season, non-season, and all those things depend. But yes, Dubai is still the leading cities in UAE, which provide a lot of opportunities for chartered accountants.
Okay, so thank you, sir, for clarifying these questions. So on behalf of ICI and CP
Sir,
committee, I sincerely
this last question from Vineet sir, can be taken up.
Vineet Vineet Shah.
Vineet Shah.
Okay, Vineet Shah from Mumbai. He is saying I am 6 years post qualification experience. FAFD and DISA, we do a lot of CFO services globally, ex EVA and ex Deloitte. I have seen practicing in Dubai is difficult as there is high undercutting of fees, even by 100, 200 AED. Any comments?
Yeah, so I think we see this a lot of. See, unlike India also I think we have to some extent this kind of issues. But in UAE, what happens is that you have people coming from different countries and then get into this audit practice. Since you have people coming from different countries, so their expectations and their experiences could be different. So some audit firms, they may offer services at lower prices if they are happy with that. So that problem is there, that issue is there, of course. But if you maintain quality and if you deliver that, there are companies which prefer to come to you, even if you charge higher fees. It has to be balanced, but yeah, we have these problems to be handled for sure.
Okay. I think now we can conclude. So on behalf of IC and CP committee, I sincerely thank you, sir, for sharing your experience. And on
Thank
behalf of
you.
CP committee, I thank other speakers also and participants also. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have a pleasant evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. CP committee would like to thank both our faculties and Anshul sir for an amazing session. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you.